In this video, we're going to run through a LinkedIn ad strategy for a B2B software company. I want to take you through my thought process on finding the best audience to target for this company, how to create the best and most appealing creative for this company and the process behind that, and finally, how to structure the ad account to make sure we get the best bang for our buck, the best visibility, and hopefully the most number of conversions for this company. Now, to make things even more interesting, I'm going to choose a super competitive industry, and I'm going to choose a company that I've never heard of before in that industry, just to make it slightly more challenging. So I'm kind of going in blind around what their value proposition is, apart from the fact that last night when I found this company, I had a brief look at their homepage as well. So I really want to kind of tie my arms behind my back and throughout this process kind of give you some of the narrative of how I'd approach it and things I'd probably go and look at further, whether it's from a strategy point of view from a company as a whole, or whether it's from a rollout and tactical point of view from implementing the LinkedIn ads. So let's jump straight into it. Now, who is this company? The company is a help desk software called BoldDesk. Again, haven't come across these guys. And the way I found them is I just typed in help desk software, which is obviously a super competitive industry, into Google. And you had your sort of standard guys like Monday, which I thought was project management software, but I think they're doing help desk software stuff now, maybe. Seems like they are. But Zendesk, Freshdesk, all these heavily funded, large, sort of an oligopoly probably in the market that you have here. So I didn't want to choose these guys. So what I did is I scrolled all the way to the bottom and I was like, I'm going to choose the last result on this page, which turned out to be our friends BoldDesk. I say friends, I haven't come across them before and they definitely haven't come across me. So let's start, before we get into the LinkedIn ads and everything else that comes along with that, the audiences, the creative and the structure, let's look at, very top level on their website, what we can attain from what their positioning is against everyone else in the market. Now on their homepage, I came across this very handy thing for me that was like, okay, so BoldDesk versus other help desks. Again, quite general, but kind of started giving me an idea of how they view themselves, even if, maybe other people don't see it the same way. So first one is pricing. So ultimately, this is the pricing compared to other ones, which would be a lot more per agent. See, I kind of take them at face value here. So it seems that one of their value propositions is, even though they offer a lot of the same stuff, they're going to be cheaper. So keep that in the back of the mind. I think that's quite, from like a value prop and like a positioning perspective, pricing is one of the big areas that you can kind of pull on. Free migration. Again, I'd say that's okay. It kind of falls under pricing, but also I imagine other help desk softwares would do that. So in my mind, I'm not convinced by that. Best in class support, again, not very tangible like pricing or like specializing in a vertical or like mechanism of delivery or whatever it may be. So I feel like, again, not very tangible. And I feel like that's super important just to go into it from like a value prop perspective is, or like a USP perspective, is actually making sure that it's something that people believe. A differentiator needs to be something tangible. It can't just be like, we have the best support, because you can't prove that necessarily until they're already a customer, and it might be help you with the retention, but getting people on board, differentiated perspective, make sure that you can actually sort of prove it. It's a process, something like that. Effortless onboarding, again, effortless to who? Budget friendly, pretty much the same as pricing. So what I've kind of got to that is these guys haven't chosen a vertical, and I generally believe when you're going up against the big guys, especially to start with, choosing a vertical is probably one of the best ways to build a moat. If they chose like education or government, then they could probably like say, on-premise being more secure. We're on-prem, they're in the cloud, we're more secure, come to us. They could probably charge a premium, have a really good moat, specialists, onboarding, all of that sort of stuff. But these guys are sort of competing on price, and that's what we're going to go with, because we're not going to change their business model. We're just going to help them amplify their current positioning and how they're differentiating themselves, which is from pricing. It's always good to go look at reviews to validate that people are actually right in being like, this is who we are, and ultimately, as long as the reviews are legit, it sort of helps sort of feed into that narrative. So a great product, an affordable price from G2, excellent tool to use, so good UI, good UX, and affordable price down here. So it kind of adds up that maybe a lot of people have used other things like Freshdesk, Zendesk, and actually kind of got burnt by the price increases, or because they're quite a big company, they got to sort of keep up with the headcount and everything else. So they're kind of coming in with a cheaper alternative. And yeah, I think touching on the bits earlier, I think probably could go quite good with, looking in the CRM with the verticals they've had good success with, and maybe focusing more on them. It could help them, with their ad budget to get further, but we're sticking with what we got at this stage. So they can go and find their audience in two different ways. So they could go from a LinkedIn ad perspective, first and foremost through ABM. So they could go and find lists from data suppliers like Clay, for example. They can go out there and say, these are the companies we want to target. They can upload that CSV and then just target those companies. This is a really good approach if you have like a bad native match. So in LinkedIn ads, you don't have the exact option you're going after. So for example, like if you want to target SaaS companies, for us, it's hard to target SaaS companies because the closest equivalent is software development. But say if we're going after like HR software, a lot of them are categorized as human resources, but we don't want to target human resources because that's a different industry altogether. So if you have a bad native fit of audience, then it's a really good idea to use ABM lists. But if it does have a good fit, then maybe it'd be worth going down the native side. And by native, I mean building it within your audience within LinkedIn ads versus building it elsewhere and then importing that company technographic, firmographic data, for example, into LinkedIn ads. The next one is specific ICP. So if you know exactly who you're going to go after and there are not very many of them, you probably want to download it, just Fortune 500 companies, for example, download them, upload them into LinkedIn. You want more control and you probably have more resource because you have to go through and vet them, build these audiences. It obviously takes more time to go through and make sure that you've refined them, everyone's checked them, everyone's happy with them. And then you have to constantly keep doing it because it's not a dynamic list. The next one, things like, if you want to target people who are growing at a certain rate, you can do that natively within LinkedIn. But say, for example, companies who have just received funding or companies who are hiring certain people, again, you want to go and look at lists that have signals, which allow you to then upload to make sure that you're best foot forward to really sort of get in front of those people that are going across those certain stages in their business. Or you guys are working with a sales team who are doing sort of things like lead scoring and you have like a sync and all the data's in your CRM. And you only want to advertise to the people in your CRM or sort of firmographics. And this is where the ABM list actually could be quite good as a part of this wider strategy for this. So say, for example, we want to go after people, in my mind, but I think there's definitely a lot of evidence out there to show. I was reading a book the other day called How Brands Grow, and most people just obviously go and flock towards the companies they know the most. So Freshdesk, Zendesk, people know them, they'll probably just sign up for them. And then mainly when they leave, they know they have a problem and they want to then leave and they want to find someone else who's cheaper, more industry specialized, whatever it may be. And that's when it's really good. And then so what these other companies find, or these smaller companies find, is they win most of their clients and people that have already got a help desk versus people that are like net new to the help desk software world, because people will go via a solution which they fall out of love with. So ultimately, if we can target people that are fed up with spending too much on Zendesk, for example, we can then sort of potentially capitalize on them trying to find a better fit company. So for example, what you can do here, and this wouldn't happen in all industries, but it's really good for this industry, is we found that Zendesk.com, their subdomain actually hosts all these companies. So you can actually see Envato Elements, you can see WVO, you can see Cambridge Core, you can see Minecraft, you can see probably hundreds and hundreds of companies down here which are using Zendesk subdomain, which obviously is hosting their help desk software. So what you could do is go and put this into the likes of Ahrefs as like a tool. It will show you all the subdomains within this, and you can then go and look at the smaller companies potentially, or the medium-sized organizations who are using Zendesk. You can upload that list in as an ABM perspective into LinkedIn ads and target them with pricing based messaging, which we'll get onto in a minute. So super interesting way of doing it. And again, you can go on things like Built With, for example, another good example of, they'll list these out and you can target them that way. But just an example of how you can go and use creative targeting. And what we found is, like I mentioned, people who already have a solution will be more likely to change to you guys versus potentially people that haven't had a solution, because their brain and their search engine in their mind has already categorized Freshdesk and Zendesk with all the millions and hundreds of millions of pounds they've spent on advertising over the years. They kind of know they're there. So they don't even use search engines. They just go straight to those guys, or they'll go through search engines to those guys in a lot of cases. So winning them off the back of it, which is kind of where it helps as well, where you're verticalized, because you can go and see all the people that are in education using Zendesk and say, we are the Zendesk. We are the alternative for people in XYZ sector. But pricing can work as well. You can then go and look at native setup. So I'd say with native setup, the best way of doing it would be going to outline your ideal customer persona in LinkedIn ads and going onto someone's LinkedIn profile and saying like, these guys here, this is the job description. These are what they've been endorsed with from a skill perspective. This is their company industry. If I click on their company, we can go on here and see view as member. they're in advertising services. So you can really start going in and building up a profile of who you want to target. You can even go and look at things like their groups. So I can go on here and see what groups they part of. As an example, B2B marketing group could be a really good one to target as well. So really going down and getting like a list of 10 personas, writing down their industries, writing around their job titles, writing down what groups they're part of, what they're endorsed for, and seeing if there's any correlation so you can start building out these audiences. And it's not to say that you can't go away and create an ABM list and a native list and then compare the two. But if you want to do a native list, it's much quicker to set up. Dynamic list versus changing it with ABM, and obviously you cast your net wider. You can ultimately win clients by accident. You don't know that you're targeting, whereas here you guys are going to know the clients you're targeting anyway. So those are the two different options when coming to create a LinkedIn ads audience. I'm not going to go through and create one because I've done uploading lists and native audiences, and I'll link to the LinkedIn ads playlist where we think we have about 15 to 20 videos going through complete LinkedIn ad campaign tutorials, audience building, create everything like that. So let's get on to the messaging. Now, there's kind of a few different ones, I think, straight off the bat that you want to go and create before you even do research. So go look at your competitors' ads, see what their position is, see how strong their messaging is. A lot of the case is going to be just a lot of ebooks being promoted in a very sort of corporate way. So go and check that all out. I think obviously these guys probably are quite good because they probably have big marketing teams behind them. But just a couple of things that just sort of came into mind when I was doing this, writing these down this morning, was like, first and foremost, you want to have a couple of problems or solution focused ads. So the solution or the actual thing they offer is affordable help desk software, and then a slight twist that doesn't suck. So again, it's a bit more of like a play on words of like the customer experience with the CX. So kind of write that down pretty quickly. I say it's lukewarm ad. Maybe start with that one, and then ultimately we can look to create, other ones. So I think this kind of hits the mark if someone's looking for a CX. They're kind of in the industry. So next one going on to social proof would be, these are the logos. They haven't got any use cases that I could see on the homepage or case studies. So what I'd do is I'd probably try and go and get testimonials and pillar case studies for these guys and verticalize them and just target people in, I think this is American because I don't know what TVS is or this other stuff is. So why can't I zoom in? Yeah, I don't know who these guys are, but I look at these industries. If that was, I don't know, IT, you go down the IT route and target them. Same with these. Competitor ads. Now, a lot of the time, it's kind of up to the company whether you want to target competitors. I saw when I typed in Bolddesk that Zendesk was bidding on them. So I thought, fair game. They're coming after your traffic, even though it could be like a phrase match or a broad match targeting. But ultimately, they're in play now because they're already trying to take your traffic anyway. So what else are they going to do? So high prices taking your Zen away. You can look to see when they increase prices, target that list from an ABM perspective, and create a cool little ad like this. And then product loop features. I think looking at your users, usership, why people started using your product, things they like the most, actually creating little videos around those snippets and sort of advertising them to your target audience market. We'll get into where they fit in the layer, where they fit into the marketing process in a minute. But I think this is really interesting and really cool. And it's always going to be those features that people get excited about on the demos and the ones that people want to know more about. So it's really cool, I think, just to create those little product loops, having like your founder or your sort of technical director as like the power user. I think it's such an underrated SaaS strategy. Having like an email, so anyone who engages with the above, I think having a really good email to sort of send out once someone engages. And if you want to start getting like funny and like relatable ads and getting like scroll stopping ads, I think there's a really simple process. And that would be where you create buckets. And the top one would be you take your main differentiators. Obviously here they decided it was cost, which again could be stronger. I'm not going to get into it, but it could be cost. It could be, you're verticalized. So it could be great for financial services, for help desk or schools or government. And then down there, it could have so you start with your primary selling point at the top. You have tangible benefits to clients. So what does this mean? So cost means better margins. It means there's no hidden costs. It means it's cheaper than competitors. Again, did this quite quickly. Got a little bit of help from ChatGPT too. Wouldn't lie to you guys. And then we have the likes of, what we want to do is like a funny, relatable scenario. So try and have 3 different scenarios, and off the back of those, choose your favorite ones and create ad copy around them. So can we create something around like being the CFO's best friend, tying that into a help desk software approach, cheaper than competitors, Fortune 500 help desk at a startup cost. Like how can we take this primary sort of differentiator, maybe it's 2 or 3 other ones as well, take their primary differentiator. What's the actual tangible benefit to your clients? Not just like amazing customer service. It's got to be like something tangible. Like you're literally going to have better margins. There is literally no hidden cost. This is like stuff you can write down. And then what's the scenario off the back of it? And then you can start ideating funny ways of doing it. You can do like before and after. You can do, cup of coffee versus help desk. You can do Fortune 500, yada, yada. You can be like, the only people they're helping is themselves. You can get quite creative as long as it's clear, it is concise, and then you can start getting clever. So don't try and get clever before you got clear and concise. So can you tell what the product does? And is it said in the easiest way to understand first and foremost? Now, here are some examples of ones which we've pulled off LinkedIn library. So for example, we want to look at, if you ever get stuck with creating ads, here are 9 different types of ad, which we've come up with. So the first one is like the numbers and the framing. So you want to frame it positively. So here's a bad example from Adobe where they say 26% of people it helps, where they could have flipped it around and said 74. But here's a good example, like join 90% of MSPs automate their patching, yada, yada. So that's numbers and framing it positively. The tangible loop. So these guys here are Cognizant. So we human verify, which is the keyword here, the mobile numbers on a database, which is tangible, which means, that's how they can verify it. So they could just say we have 99%, made that up, but like accurate data. When actually they say we human verify, which is more powerful because actually you can picture someone actually being like, oh yeah, that number's right. Let's call them up. Probably don't do that, but it's sort of like well linked together. Credibility. So with over 200 5-star reviews on G2, again, really nice. Jump into your biggest things. So social proof, how many users you've got, sort of why would someone trust you? And I think if you're the cheapest, you need to make sure that you also have a lot of social proof to go along with it, because people might start thinking, well, why are you the cheapest? Is there a reason? Are you going to go out of business? Are you going to steal my data? So you need to have that social proof, especially if your main differentiator is price. Loss aversion. This is a great one from Panel.doc, which I can't believe how many companies are still making their sales team jump through hoops. So you don't want to be that guy. So there's loss aversion there. Time to value. So how quickly can you get to the value of your product? So Panel.doc, we get from prospects to yes, ASAP. Effort to benefit, very similar. So automating your sourcing efforts. So the main example here would be post your job to over 200 sites within 1 click. So that's obviously effort to benefit. So very small effort to get a great benefit. Intrigue. Are you tired of spending hours on reporting? Yes. Read on. Call out your ICP, so your ideal customer persona. Marketing agencies, again, makes it very good if you are verticalized. And the final one is, are you tired of spending hours on reporting? So if you can't think of any of these ones over here, sort of like off the bat, that sort of like seem like would be good, you can't think of any ways to sort of tie your differentiator to a tangible benefit and then tie it into like a relatable view, then just go down here and start taking some inspiration and try and get that header, and then that might help you tie it into ultimately what an ad could look like. And then finally, account structure. So if I was these guys, I'm not going to go too much into cost, and again, I have videos on how much you should spend on ads in the LinkedIn ads library. We'll go next, and I'll link to it at the end. But I want to kind of structure it from a first touch, and from a first touch, I want to have 1 image, 1 carousel, 1 video, and 1 thought leadership ad, hopefully from one of the senior leadership team. And these should mainly be consist of problem or solution content. So we can help you solve this. Are you bored of this? We can help with this. Ultimately, you want someone who has potentially some sort of appetite to click on these ads. Once they've clicked on these ads, you can then put them into what we call the warm layer, which is then when we start showing them more case studies, more info content. So, what is, how is AI helping within the help desk process, and sort of like a breakdown of that. Your product loops, which I mentioned earlier. So best use cases for your videos, your favorite features, your new features, any updates I think are really good. And popular posts from executives, because if you have an organic strategy, you can amplify anything that's been working well. And anyone who's receiving these is also receiving these first touch as well. So you're kind of hitting them with both angles. And then this one here is obviously about amplification. This one here is about consumption. All I care about here is people consuming this as much as humanly possible, and I'm monitoring for that in the warm layer. But in the remarketing layer, this is people that have engaged again with these layers. So they've engaged with 2 different levels of post. They're now getting, say, an email or direct response, potentially some demo ads. Don't overdo this layer, and a lot more social proof. Now, this is normally like a 30-day window here, because I also bring in people from Google Ads. So these guys here are paying a lot of money to obviously appear in the Google Ads perspective. I don't think actually Google Ads is a bad strategy for these guys because they're competing on price, and Google Ads is quite a good place to compete on price because they would have filled out 3 or 4 different vendors and probably haven't got a preferred one. So it's actually quite a good place to compete on price. So actually don't mind. This is expensive in the SERPs here. We've played in this space before. So yeah, anyone who clicks on that Google ad, a lot of people aren't going to convert. You want to make sure that you cookie the browser and you're actually advertising to them at a high frequency over the next 30 days because they could still be looking to make that decision. It should be something organizational intent because they've gone to look and typed in a high intent query. So you want to make sure you target them. You can also go and target the wider audience there in a structure from an ABM list. I hope you guys found that useful. This was a very quick run through of a company I don't know very much about, who are competing in a very competitive space. This is ultimately how I'd approach it in some thoughts. I go a lot deeper on creative. I start looking at the industries which are converting well and then try and convince the company to verticalize and go after those companies specifically. So I think everyone kind of owns strategy, and if you're working on marketing in isolation, you want to make sure you're feeding that stuff back to the company and saying we're actually finding that these industries here are converting much better. This is where we seem to have the best most compelling differentiator for these guys. It doesn't even have to be vertical. It can be like company size or another sort of criteria. So we hope you found that useful, guys. I want to do a few more of these run throughs. If you want to do one of your site, maybe just whack them in the comments below, and we can go and do a run through, or you can get in contact and we can do it privately as well. But I hope you found that useful. Here's a link to the LinkedIn ads playlist. Any questions, whack them down below. Speak to you next week, guys. Until then, have a good one.